Started. I was born and raised in Ukraine, and I worked and studied in Ireland and the UK, and I lived with people across different cultures. And now in the US, I work with global communities at my current company, Smule, and I often ask myself this question: what's universal across people and cultures? And certainly our emotions are universal, right? However, in a startup world with limited resources, how can we build effective business models relevant for global audience? How can we find what's universal and specific to them? And today, let's chat about how to manage margins across global markets from the growth perspective and what's universal and specific across different regions. However, first, let me give you a little context about Smule. At Smule, we aspire to connect the world through music. And we develop apps that make it easy and fun for people to sing, play, and rap songs with each other. And that power of co-creation is at the core of our product. People create music together and develop virtual, meaningful connections. And here, I want to play a quick song. It's a mashup with Luis Capaldi with users around the world.
Oh, don't mess this up. Mate, I would. I feel whatever we say. Like everyone
You should be more positive.
I hate you, I hate you, I hate you, but I was just kidding myself. Or every moment I start to play. Cause now that they're gonna like you were the words that I needed to say.
When you hurt under the surface, I trouble the water.
More passion. More passion. Okay, I'm gonna have to come in and save you with that. Right. Let's do it.
So,
I'll go high, you go low.
before you go, was there something I could have said to make your heart beat better?
Where's your passion?
I love this one. And we also work with hip-hop communities as well, and we are revamping our Outrap app. Here a little snippet as well. It might be actually a little bit too loud, so sorry about that.
Do it 2 times. Big salad with the croutons. Welfare food stamp coupons. I hate it walking to the store. Bluest roof all for the low. We all wanted a 5.0.
Mama said we sleeping on the floor tonight. It's cowboys and Indians. The minivan came up.
Okay, great. And to illustrate that global scope of our community, here is a map of song uploads across the world. And some of these people sing on their own and create music, and some of them co-create together. Okay, let's dig into the actual content. And here are a couple of topics that I would love to cover today. When you're thinking expanding internationally, these are areas to think through purely from financial standpoint. There are a number of other topics that you need to think when you go global. So first, let's start with margins. And Smule's main monetization model is subscription. Subscription model is great. The revenue is predictable, right? The renewing nature of it has a long-lasting effect. There is a downside sometimes because like the users, there is only one type of user, subscriber or not subscriber. So the margin sometimes can be thin. And again, you don't have those whales. And when your user acquisition costs increase, margins have a lot of pressure. And usually, right, like when evaluating margins, usually in the user acquisition, we primarily focus on LTVs, customer acquisition cost. Then we look at distribution cost, if any. For mobile digital goods, it's app store fees for Google and Apple. And then there is variable cost. And this is something we started looking only when we expanded internationally, and it proved to be critical for us. I will expand a little bit on the cost. Again, as a reminder for App Store, for app subscription businesses, you pay 15% to the App Store after you retained a subscriber over 1 year. And before that, you pay 30%. This is also important when you're evaluating different countries because the subscriber retention in those countries may vary and your margin will be different. And when it comes to variable cost, it's really different, right, for each business. Here are some examples for us. It's storage, bandwidth, and then royalties, like for anyone in the music space. And I would like right now to walk you through an actual example. The numbers are made up there, but the example is real. So here we have two regions, A and B. And from the gross perspective, region A doing much better than B. When we take off Apple App Store fees, the two regions come closer together, right? Because the sub retention is better in region B. And then when we apply distribution costs, the picture changes dramatically due to bandwidth cost in this case. And this was really an eye-opener for me when we went through this exercise across all countries. And since then, our investment strategy changed and also our approach to the market and its growth changed. Now let's talk a little bit about monetization in global markets. And often, in each market, one monetization model prevails over another and how to find that sweet spot. In a digital goods services, the choice is often between subscription and microtransaction models. Until now, in many markets, subscription model is still foreign, especially in developing countries, and while it's well adopted in the West. A number of big players like Netflix, Spotify are paving the way of the subscription adoption in the developing geos. So I definitely seen change in the last few years. And I like to bring up this example. I had a conversation with an e-wallet company in Philippines, and it really nailed it for me how different consumer behavior is. So I was asking this e-wallet provider, why can't you do a recurrent subscription through your cash account in the e-wallet? And they were telling me, Eugenia, in Philippines, people buy cigarettes one by one, not because they need to, but because they want to. And I kind of knew it before, but I kind of didn't want to believe it. And, this conversation really was fruitful for me to understand the behavior in those markets. And this brings me to an important topic, which is payment methods, because the monetization model you decide will largely be affected by the payment methods. If users don't have credit cards, there are a number of other payment methods like e-wallets, direct carrier billing, cash, bank transfers, and so on. If you are like us offering subscription, some payment methods just simply don't support the auto-renew and subscription, and you won't scale there. Generally, in developing countries, there is still a large unbanked population, and the payment system is very fragmented, and there is lack of trust and fraud. So it's definitely difficult to navigate. And as we were thinking more and more about the subscription limitations, we realized we need to diversify our monetization strategy. And we recently introduced social gifting economy, where users can gift each other digital goods such as stickers or actually a subscription, a pass for a couple of days. And the sum of advantages of this model that it's aligned with engagement and singing. And we can start generating those incremental whales and lift our LTV. And also, it's not cannibalistic to the subscription. Like our well-oiled subscription business is great. It's going on the top of it. And I'm observing a lot of subscription businesses currently, both in digital and real goods, have been introducing add-ons and incremental monetization, just being able to lift your LTVs. And going into pricing, a couple of points on the pricing, I think it's really crucial for margins, but also it's crucial to make it lean and universal, especially if you're a startup like us. Definitely as a startup, you can't go a hyper localized approach of McDonald's or hyper dynamic approach of the airline industry. So I always recommend establishing some simple bucketing methodologies through testing and analysis. It won't be ideal for sure. However, it will allow you to scale and iterate faster on more important things in monetization. For example, we approached it from GDP perspective, but we also took into account what are our specific penetration objectives and strategic objectives for the markets. And we bucketed it into high, medium, and low regions and adjusted prices accordingly. And here I wanted to give you an example of an outlier. So Malaysia. Malaysia, to our surprise, is actually quite high GDP country. It's close to Singapore, but not right there. There are large population of educated English-speaking people. However, when we looked at our user base, we realized that most of our users are actually from Indonesia, living in Malaysia. And Indonesia has a completely different GDP, and most likely that's immigrants. And we have a very high brand awareness and market penetration in Indonesia. So we had to take that into account and put it into a different bucket closer to Indonesia, which was super interesting for me to find out. And now finally, I would like to finish up on how to organize the growth team to maximize those margins, especially there are so many moving parts when you run internationally. And so we have UA, monetization, and CRM. And I think monetization team is a key in this process to establish the foundation for monetization and LTVs, which UA and CRM teams can build on the top. In our case, UA, since they're managing the budget, they usually are establishing the margin targets across. And also the team defines the geo focuses and gaps. For example, somewhere, hey, we actually can drive, a good proportion of DAO, however, LTV is still not there. And they pass that information to monetization, and monetization thinking, okay, how we can improve this geo or region. So yeah, the monetization focuses primarily on LTV. And while then CRM addresses upsell and churn and re-engagement across both our owned and paid channels. And we believe that, re-engagement should live under, a unified view, as we can re-engage both through paid and owned channels. And they work really closely with the monetization team. And couple of takeaways, a summary. Again, when you go global, unit economics matters. You can find some surprises like I did. When you go global, you need to think if your current monetization model will work or you need some adjustment. You can go test and learn, which is the best. There are a number of pricing and payment hurdles that you would need to address in a universal and lean manner if you are a startup. And the key is how can you maximize that revenue through a focused team effort around the same objectives and goals. And I will leave you again with what I started when you're thinking about expanding globally and your monetization. Think what's universal and what's not, and how you can bucket things effectively and resonate with a global audience. I think that's it for me. I'm open for any questions that you might have.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Eugenia. Just as a note, apparently the system is kind of broken in this session. I don't know exactly what happened. People are able to view the session still, which is excellent. Unfortunately, it doesn't look like we can do chat or Q&A. Are you able to jump into the networking lounge in one of our speaker tables for a little while? after this session so
Yeah.
that anyone who has questions can jump in?
Yeah,
Excellent.
absolutely. Where do I?
Excellent.
Yeah, I will do that. Yeah, thank you.
I appreciate it. And for those of you who are tuning in, if you have questions for Eugenia, please just head over to the networking lounge. There are a couple tables labeled as a speaker table 1 and speaker table 2. You'll be able to see who is in the table, so just find the one with Eugenia and feel free to ask her any questions. For those who can't make it to the networking lounge, what is another way to get in touch with you maybe?
Yeah, you can just message me on LinkedIn. I think that's the best. You can find me and message me, yeah, and I will respond.
Awesome. I appreciate it. Thank you again for the wonderful talk, Eugenia. And we'll see you all again at the next session, I believe at the top of the hour. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.